Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series. Obviously, the show in which we react to the latest Arsenal news, matches, transfers, anything Arsenal related, and also get the thoughts of our live chat too. Today is finally the day in which we really sort of start to feel like football is back with Arsenal. We've had the international break. We've had some really interesting stuff happen over that break. Arsenal related, un-Arsenal related. We'll have a little bit of a chat about both. We've had a few shows over the international break, a couple of tactical breakdowns. We look at a more serious side of things, and we did a show about fan abuse and obviously the Emery out side of stuff. But now we are fully back into the swing of things as we approach the game on Monday night at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United. Thank you ever so much for everyone that's taken the time out of their afternoon to tune into the show, and obviously everyone who's watching on playback as well. But let's jump straight into things and get into what you are here for. We're here to discuss the interview that was done by David Ornstein with Mesut Ozil. Now, the Mesut Ozil debate definitely divides plenty of opinions. I think it swayed in the favour of the German and then out of favour with the German so many times throughout the last couple of years or so, and even beyond that, that now it's a case where fans are in a situation where we've got a player who's on a lot of money. He's not playing a hell of a lot of football at the moment, and a lot of people would be quite happy to see him move on in, be it January, be it a little bit later on. But I think a lot of people would be more than happy to see the German leave. But that is contrary to reports from the German players' camp, and we're going to jump straight into talking about all that because the article done on The Athletic, obviously The Athletic, a very fantastic news site with all of the really top journalists like James McNicholas from Arsblog, Amy Lawrence, Ornstein himself, and plenty of other really, really top writers. So David Ornstein's piece in the interview, we're going to highlight a couple of his quotes from the interview as he talks about his tough time at Arsenal in terms of selection. He goes on to talk about the actual attack that happened to him and the political stuff with his Turkish heritage as well. So let's jump straight into things. And I mean, Ornstein holds or pulls no punches whatsoever, which is great to see. So in terms of players and how he's performed, about asking if he's heading for the Arsenal exit, Ozil replied firmly, no. I have a contract until the summer of 2021 and I'll be staying until then. When I signed the deal, I thought about it very carefully and said it was one of the most important decisions of my footballing career. I didn't want to stay for just 1 or 2 more years. I wanted to commit my future to Arsenal and the club wanted me to do the same. You can go through difficult times like this, but that is no reason to run away, and I'm not going to. I'm here until at least 2021. I said that Arsene Wenger was a big factor in me joining Arsenal, and he was, but ultimately I signed for the club. Even when Arsenal announced he was leaving, I wanted to stay because I love playing for Arsenal. That's why I've been here for 6 years. When I moved from Real Madrid, it was a really tough time for Arsenal, but I always wanted to believe in what we could do, and together we delivered. More recently, things have been difficult and a lot has changed, but I'm proud to be an Arsenal player and a fan, and I'm happy here. Whenever people see me in the street, I always say, this is my home. I'm going nowhere. A lot of stuff that he said in terms of that, and obviously very positive. The main thing that we can take from that is saying that he isn't going anywhere. He is certainly staying. There were some links to him possibly joining DC United in January. There were some links to him possibly going to Turkey, which I didn't really report on because I didn't give them any sort of credence. And that's clearly the case. That's clearly the case now, is that Ozil wants to say he wants to stay until the end of his contract, which is in 2 years' time. Still got 2 years, well, that's just under 2 years left on his deal. And that's completely fair enough. He's been paid that much. He signed that deal. The club offered him that, and he can do as he wishes with that. What we've got to hope now is that actually he turns his playing career around at Arsenal. And in terms of, I mean, actually performing on the pitch, he actually talks a little bit about how his stature is at the club. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in our chat before we move any further. Tyrone says, Mesut in pre-season was looking fire. I hope he can deliver now. He certainly was. That was something that we really highlighted in the pre-season shows, that Ozil looked really, really positive. Nico says, Ozil has stayed for money, in my opinion, and many opinions of us over here in Washington, D.C. Interesting. Joseph says, Marquise doesn't really help the team with his... Marquise? Who is Marquise? Is that a nickname? I have no idea. Doesn't really help the team with his inconsistencies, though. Carl, long-time listener of the show, says, hoping the January paper talk can stop now. Yeah, I mean, as Arsenal fans, I don't think we can really escape that sort of thing. Alinka says, Tom, isn't the Athletic website behind a paywall? Be careful about showing the content; you might get in trouble. It is behind a paywall, but as you can look at the the comments. I mean, you can look at all the quotes that have come out on different websites. So I'm only going to show you little snippets from it. Nico says, greetings once again, Tom. Thank you for tuning in. Carl says, if we can sell him, how much do you think we can get? Tyrone says, but if he stays, how will that affect how transfer activity is in the future? Corey says his wages are holding us back. I mean, when we talk about Mesut Ozil as a whole, it's a really, really difficult sort of way of dealing with a player that's on a hell of a lot of money. He's a player which is extremely... It's hard to like him sometimes because of the way of his manner on the pitch. And actually, I mean, let's just fast forward. In fact, I'll take some advice and maybe not show up on the screen, but let's talk about through some of the comments in terms of his actual demeanour on the pitch. Ozil has been a source of constant scrutiny, be it his performances since signing the new deal, his contribution in the so-called big games, his body language on the field, or his fitness record. He describes the notion that he may have downed tools after putting pen to paper on such a lucrative deal as ridiculous and total rubbish. So let's get some feedback on what he said about that. So he says, if that was true, why did I work so hard and positively during pre-season this year? And why after the World Cup last year did I return from holiday early for the first time in my career to start training 3 days before I was expected back? I did it for the new coach, the team and the club. Maybe people don't like it. That I have a good contract. I don't know or care. Fair enough. I mean, he doesn't hold any punches back there. It always happens that an ex-player stands there on TV and criticises me. Others just continue the theme and it gets in everyone's heads. If we don't do well in a big game, it's always my fault. If that's true, how do you explain our results in the big games when I wasn't involved? There's no real difference. I know people expect me to offer more, dictate play and make the difference. I do too. But it's not that straightforward. I'm not the only player in the team, and don't forget, some of our opponents are simply better than us. Also, what is big or small in the Premier League? Anyone can beat anyone. Look at Wolves or Norwich beating Manchester City, or Newcastle and West Ham beating Manchester United. So you can't say my good performances only came in small games because of these games don't really exist. The intensity is there in every match, and often the small teams raise their standard against the big teams. I also get really frustrated when I miss a game through illness and people question if it's genuine. This is sort of something that I'm really, really interested about. It says, yes, it happened a few times, usually in the winter, but what am I supposed to do? If you knew me, you would know it takes a lot for me to miss a game, and I have never used sickness as an excuse. Actually, the opposite. I played many games when I was ill or had injuries. Before the Champions League game against Bayern Munich in 2017, I was sick, and Arsene told me I was not in the squad because of that. The next morning, the guys from Arsenal called me and said, listen, you have to come to the stadium, you have to be in the squad. And despite my illness, I joined the squad and played the last 20 minutes. Most players don't play when injured or sick. It influences your game. You can't give everything. But I was always available unless it was impossible. So something which people sort of say about Mesut Ozil is that the illness or the inconsistencies or the injuries are excuses. Now, he categorically, and as you would expect to, says that it isn't an excuse. It's no excuse that he's ill and he's played when he isn't fully fit or he isn't feeling fully equipped to battle that game. But for me, even if it isn't true, it's difficult to get your head around the decision then to employ someone or improve their wages if those injuries and illnesses are consistent, which we know that they are. And I think that is the key thing about Mesut Ozil that really sort of defines the struggle that fans have with liking and getting on with him. Let's see what some of you guys are saying. Omar says, this guy is finished. I don't understand why so many people stick out for him. Devon Gray says he is that missing link for Pepe. Need to start receiving the ball facing the goal. Brookie says Ozil's had that demeanour throughout his career. He has won the lot and still has that. I mean, the fact that he's won loads with that demeanour, I never really was someone that picked on that as a something to dislike him, because I think that when he's on the ball, that's when he's most dangerous. He's never going to be the guy to chase back. But he is the person to create and change games, and that's why Arsene Wenger stuck with him for so long. My issue with him was the consistency of seeing the performances on the pitch. That was always what I saw, either not being in the squad or when he was on the field. He never influenced the game as much as I ever wanted him to. And he is by far, has probably the most ability of any player on the side. But the problem is that he doesn't show it consistently enough. He can either be a 10 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. There's never any in between. It's always he gives absolutely everything and has an amazing game, or he's absolutely invisible. And you can't really be playing a player 350 grand a week if he's not giving as much as he should do. Guna123 says Ozil has more talent than any other player we have, but it's his attitude and work rate on the pitch which makes fans dislike him. Now, it's this type of comment in which I enjoy having you guys as a live chat, because I genuinely think I have one of the best audiences on this platform, because there are measured comments like Guna123's there. We highlight the positive points in saying that he has the most talent, as we just said, but it is the inconsistencies and his demeanour and the work rate which really does put fans off, and it's 100% right. Henry Dozy says he still has something to give to the club. We should take advantage, get him hot, then cash in on him. He is past 30 now, so cashing in on a player like him, I don't see us getting too much in for. I think I actually saw some links and possibly even Italian clubs, but as he says, he wants to stay at the club, so I can't see him moving on any other way. Irfan says, Tom, we all wish these words were true, but honestly, history repeats itself. He has no more credit in the bank, and he has no choice but to come out and say these things. And that is fair enough. He has to come out and defend himself. We wouldn't expect anything less from the comments, so I think that is completely true at the end of the day. I wanted to sort of do the second half of the show on the press conference. Before we do, though, if you're watching on playback, please let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are on Mesut Ozil. For you, is he done? Or is it a case where actually you think integrating him back into the team now is going to be something which is key to our success this season? And we will have some links to Ozil as we go through the Unai Emery Press Conference. So let's look at that press conference now. Of course, the channel that I like to use is looking at Football London and looking specifically at what is going on in Football London in terms of the press conferences. So Unai has arrived. He arrived at 1:45 this afternoon, and he was asked a question about Monday. I mean, Monday games, we have been talking about it over and over and over again, how unfortunate we are that we get placed these games. But Unai Emery says it doesn't change a lot because we're prepared to play on whichever day the league decides. I mean, what would you expect any less? You wouldn't. On Sheffield United specifically, they are playing well with a lot of players who have come from the Championship. They are a tough team, and with their supporters, they will push us very hard, but we are ready. We want to give them a good 90 minutes. Obviously, we will be chatting to the Blades pod on tomorrow's Eyes of the Opposition show. Be at about 5 o'clock-ish tomorrow evening, so make sure your subscriber notifications turned on to know when that drops. Getting all the thoughts from the Sheffield United side of things ahead of that game. On the international players, we give them 2 days recovery after their games with their national teams. Tomorrow, they begin training with us. That's interesting. Obviously, a lot of players were away on international duty. Aubameyang was away. We had I don't know, did Guendouzi play? I think he might have played for the under-21s. He went in the main side. Willock played for the under-21s for England. We've had the likes of Saka go out with the youngsters as well. I believe Socrates was out with Greece. We've had Tierney come back. He didn't go away with Scotland, but Tierney is back as well, and that's one of the newer questions as well. We're going to go into a bit, but there were plenty of players out on international duty, which means that maybe the selection will be affected by that. In terms of Lacazette, of course, who was injured back in September, said he was going to be out until October, which we are now past midway through this month, and we've yet to see him, down to having a week off, of course. But he says today was his first session with us and he's feeling well. It depends on how he feels in the next few days as to whether he will feature on Monday, but it's been positive. I don't know if he will play 90 minutes or start on the bench. So he's going to be involved, which is great. He's back again. He's in the team. He's in the squad. So hopefully we should be able to see him start, or maybe he'll come off as an impact player. Who knows? In terms of Kieran Tierney, it's a very simple answer. He's ready to play, and that means he could be coming in over Kolasinac, but we know that Emery really does like Kolasinac, so we're going to have to wait and see if Tierney does start. On Ozil, with Mesut this year, it started difficultly for him. His problem with Sayad stopped his progression, and then after that, he was sick for a week. The last 2 or 3 weeks, he's trained and has improved. I haven't closed the possibility of playing him. If he gives us a good feeling in training, he can play. He has the skills and qualities we will need in the next few matches. Before, there were other players ahead of him training. Now I feel really good about him. So there you go. We've just talked about Mesut Ozil's interview, David Ornstein, and now we're having a bit of a look at what is being given to us from Unai Emery. And it's apparently becoming more clear that we could see Ozil involved in the squad, let alone the starting lineup, but definitely in the squad more and more as he integrates himself back into the team. Now, this is a really poignant question. And this is the type of question that when Arsene Wenger was manager, he was asked on different things that happened around the world in terms of politics, in terms of stuff that wasn't even related to football. But this is a really, really big thing right now in football, and the racism that happened in the England game that was absolutely despicable. I tweeted out during the game, I didn't understand why it takes 3 stages for a game to be abandoned. I don't understand how any punishment can come about without them playing games behind closed doors, without fines being made. But it's an absolute joke that in 2019, we're still having to hear about racism going on. Unai Emery says it is unacceptable. This is an opportunity for everybody to be strong. It isn't the responsibility of one team, coach or player. As a footballing world, we need to be strong and end this. And for me, harsher sanctions must come forward. That's on social media, that's in the grounds. Harsher punishments are needed, and we need to tackle this as strongly and as ruthlessly as possible. On the strength of the squad, every player is prepared to play with a big performance. When we are looking at our squad, we wanted to have 2 players for each position. The Premier League is our most important competition, and Monday will be a tough challenge to stay in third. I think that the fact that we are in third is surprising for a lot of us so far. Arsenal Asses says, will this be the best Arsenal team Ozil has been part of? Very interesting. Probably so. Emery Out says, Kunte, I'm not sure if I agree with him at this stage, but I think that come the end of the season, some big decisions will have to be made. Joseph Aseko says, because other players are inconsistent, it doesn't mean he should play poorly. He's the highest paid player. If you have those wages, you're obliged to perform. I expect more from Ozil than I do from Xhaka. Omar says it will be tough. It will be a tough game. As United have been decent this season, they managed to nick a draw at Stamford Bridge and almost held Liverpool to a draw until their keeper made a massive error. It's going to be a really, really tough game against Sheffield United. They aren't any mugs. We shouldn't take them as so. And that was the end of the press conference. So ultimately, I think the feeling in the camp is good. I think ultimately we're going to see players like Kieran Tierney come in. Ozil could be getting a start, could be getting back into the squad, possibly on the bench or even starting. Who knows? We saw him start against Watford when we really didn't expect him to. And Alexandre Lacazette, really, really good news. Back in the squad, back able to be selected for either the starting lineup or the bench. And hopefully we will see him come in and get some minutes. But like on yesterday's show, which we did, talking about the problem that Lacazette now presents and the headache that he causes in terms of selection, who knows what lineup we might go for. We're just going to have to wait and see. That's going to round off today's show. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the shows, please give us a like. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. And if you want to get involved with these live chats, everyone that gets involved with these, as I said earlier on in the show, I have one of the best, and I'm insanely proud of having this, one of the best audiences of all the Arsenal channels. These guys that show up every single day, week in, week out, put some really, really top quality content in terms of their questions, in terms of their comments. And if you want to get involved with that community that we've started to grow on the channel, you can do that by clicking that notification button. Joining into the shows when we go live, there'll be raw reaction shows straight after the games. And there'll be pre-recorded shows too that you can leave your comments on like tomorrow's Eyes of the Opposition show, and also on Saturday's Quick Take show with all the regular podcast boys too. I really hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, drop a like. And I'll see you again tomorrow for the Eyes of the Opposition show, as I've already mentioned. But enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon. We've only got a few days left and Arsenal are back. So there's always only one more thing to say, and that is, of course, up the Arsenal.